On an evening in January of last year, Long Island Lucinda Foster attended a charity dinner with her second husband, Wilson Foster, a prominent New York attorney. It was the last social function she was ever to attend. The amazing circumstance behind the strange disappearance of Lucinda Foster is the subject of Crusader, starring Brian Keith.
My name's Matt Anders, the society editor of one of the magazines I write for. Had several times noted the absence of Mrs. Wilson Foster from functions she normally attended. The items, plus a few vague rumors, reached the ears and eyes of Frank Gordon, managing editor. He called and asked me to make a casual check. I drove out the island to Rhodes Point, nearest village to the Foster estate. If the local shopkeepers knew anything about their wealthy clients, they kept it to themselves. I thought of checking with the police, but if Gordon wanted that, he would have phoned them instead of me. The Foster residence was too exclusive for an address. I got directions from the post office and drove to the estate area. It was one of those walled-in places with a locked gate and no trespassing signs. I tried the phone at the gatehouse and got no response. I left my car at the road and climbed the wall.
Get him, Fritzy. I'm here, Mr. Foster. Call him off. Hold it, Fritzy. Hold it. Stay, Fritzy, stay. He came over the wall.
Take him around to the garage and tie him up.
Don't you think you ought to find out who this guy is?
I know you, don't I?
Well, you've seen me.
Where?
Nuremberg. I was covering the Nazi trials. You were a prosecuting attorney on the staff of the Advocate General.
All right, Cliff. Well, you better come in and tidy up a bit.
Yeah, thanks.
Suppose you tell me, Mr. Anders, what brought you here?
Oh, well, I had sort of an idea for an article like this. You were the prosecuting attorney at Nuremberg, and since then you've been defense attorney. So, contrast is always a good angle.
That's not unusual.
No, but there's a strong psychological difference.
I think in my case you'd find it rather dull.
Oh, I don't think so. You might not notice it yourself because the effect is really on the people around you. You know, your secretary, your chauffeur, your wife particularly.
I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to help you, Mr. Anders. Neither Cliff nor my secretary were with me at the time of Nuremberg.
But your wife was.
I'm sorry, my wife isn't home, Mr. Anders. She's in Europe. My stepdaughter's attending school in Switzerland.
Oh, well, summer vacation starts in a couple of weeks. They'll be coming back then, won't they?
No. They're planning a tour of Europe this summer. What kind of magazine are you writing for, Mr. Anders? Not one of those so-called expose magazines?
No, sir.
I hope not. Because if you are, you'll have a field day with what I'm going to tell you. This is my wife, Lucinda. She was 15 years ago. The painting was commissioned by her first husband the year before he was killed. Her first husband was Ralph Jim, a very wealthy, very conservative man. He was shot to death in this room by a burglar during the war. You were probably away in the service.
Yeah.
I was Ralph Jameson's attorney and executor of his estate. We were very close. I guess Lucinda's need turned her to me. Her daughter, Lisa, was a child 5 years old. She needed a father. I was around. Since then, she's come to mean a great deal to me.
Mrs. Foster?
She's very beautiful, isn't she?
Very beautiful.
We set too much store by beauty. There are some women who regard advancing age as a deadly enemy. They try to run from it. They leave the things and the people behind who remind them of it. My wife has left me, Mr. Anders. Not legally. I hope not permanently. That's why I must discourage you from any inquiry.
There's just one flaw in your theory about your wife, Mr. Foster.
Oh? What's that?
Well, a woman who wants to forget about her age isn't liable to do it by seeking company of a grown-up daughter.
I suppose it's a way of sharing youth, Mr. Anders. You'll find the gate release switch on the right post at the end of the driveway.
Thanks.
Did you steer him off?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I borrowed a file on the Foster family from a friend in the newspaper morgue. There hadn't been a single item on Mrs. Foster for almost 6 months. The daughter, Lisa, was attending a school in Bern, Switzerland. I called the travel bureau that catered to celebrities. They checked airline and ship passenger lists for 6 months back. There was no record of Mrs. Foster booking passage on any luxury carrier to Europe. Then I ran across something in the file. It featured a photograph of the Foster chauffeur, Cliff Harger, with Wilson Foster.
Oh, well. Can I come in?
Sure.
You alone?
No, I keep a Great Dane in the closet. What do you want?
Mr. Foster sent me. He's 1 in a million. He told me to give you this.
What for?
It's what he figured you might have lost by not writing the story. $1,000.
Well, thanks. I can use it.
Good.
Because if I'm wrong, I'm going to have myself a big phone bill here. Now, give me the international operator, please.
Be smart, Anders. Take the money.
Hello, I want to place a call to Bern, Switzerland, please. Person to person to Miss Lisa...
All right, Anders, knock it off. Hang up. Put this on. We're going up.
We better come back. I'll get you over a barrel.
You need glasses.
Well, when I was out in Rhodes Point, I asked a few questions. My editor sent me out there. I borrowed this newspaper file. It's got a little story in there about Foster and his family, the picture. It includes a little item about you in a murder trial.
I was acquitted. Somebody else was convicted of that crime 2 years ago.
Oh. Somebody that didn't have Foster for an attorney?
All right, out, Anders.
Give me Rhodes Point, Long Island, please.
Don't, Anders. Forget about the $1,000. Mr. Foster will give you 10 if you'll cancel that call.
Yeah, I'm holding on, operator. You better go on in there and get yourself cleaned up. I'm taking you home.
I was charged with a murder I didn't commit once. But so help me, Anders, if I get a chance, I'm gonna kill you.
Hello, Rhodes Point. Let me speak to your chief of detectives, please.
You sure you won't take one, Captain Jethro?
Not while I'm on police duty, Mr. Foster.
Now, where's your wife, Mr. Foster?
I told you she's in Europe.
Oh, I don't think so.
I don't care what you think. You trespassed on this property today, and tonight you bring the police here with some ridiculous story about my wife disappearing.
Well, if it's so ridiculous, why did you have your chauffeur throw a gun on me when I was trying to phone your daughter in Switzerland, huh?
She isn't in Switzerland. She's on her way to London with her mother. This cablegram arrived an hour ago asking me to join them there. Now, please go ahead and read that. And will you please get out of my house?
This morning, he told me his wife had left him.
I told him that to get rid of him. I told him that because my wife is sick and tired of being bothered by every writer who comes around with some scatterbrained idea he's hoping to sell.
Well, suppose I turn this separation story of yours over to some columnist. How would you like that, huh?
I'll deny it.
Like you're going to deny that you gave Harger $1,000 to buy me off?
What's your game, Mr. Anders? What are you up to? Some kind of blackmail?
Look, I took that away from Harger when he came to my apartment.
Is this yours?
It most certainly is.
Well, how come he had it then?
Ask him. He climbed the wall. He was in this house today.
You want to make a charge against him, Mr. Foster?
What do you mean, does he want to make a charge?
Maybe you'd like to make one. You look very amusing telling the jury that I sent a man to you with $1,000 and he had to use a gun to make you take it. Of course not. I don't want to bring any charges. I just want him out of here. Take him back to the city.
Well, I'll drive him to the village, and he can take a bus. And don't show your face in Rhodes Point again. That mouth of yours will get you in trouble.
Captain Jethro didn't take me to the bus depot. He drove straight to the Rhodes Point police station. Well, I get to call a lawyer, or you got your own constitution here in Rhodes Point?
I'll pass that. Once. Next time you and me go out in the alley.
Look, a woman's missing for 6 months. You let him brush it off with a cablegram.
I'm glad you're convinced. I hope Foster feels the same way. I've been living with this file for 15 years. It hurts. Like a knife in my back.
Jameson case, huh?
You know about that?
Yeah, Foster told me Jameson was killed by a burglar.
He wasn't killed by a burglar. He was killed by somebody he knew. I was captain of police then, like I am now. When I was 35 years old, Anders, not 50. I had the best enforcement record in the state. The Attorney General was looking for a new chief investigator. My name was at the top of the list. But I had to solve the murder of a very prominent man, and I failed. While the newspapers were using me for a goat, Foster married Jameson's widow and all that went with her. This file's been sitting here for 15 years. I've been sitting here with it.
Well, no.
No man ever knows what the other guy has to live with. One way or another, I'm going to wrap this case up. The day I walk out of here, that cabinet's going to be empty. Until then, I want Foster to feel safe. Bus depot's around the corner.
What's that supposed to mean?
Stay out of Rhodes Point. You carried a gun tonight without a permit. You come back here, I'll put you on ice.
We'll see.
See what?
See if you're a cop or a liar. I caught a bus back to the city and started to do some checking. The cable office had no record of a message to Wilson Foster. It was 2 a.m. New York time, almost noon in Bern, Switzerland. I put through a call to Lisa Foster. Her mother wasn't with her and hadn't been. She was taking the first available plane home. Early in the morning, I went back to Rhodes Point. The village was just coming awake. Cliff Harger was one of the early birds.
You don't like advice, do you?
I don't care much for threats either. You know that cable Foster showed us was a phony?
I checked that last night.
Well, what do you say, Jethro? Am I going to work with you or alone?
I had Foster's bank records subpoenaed.
Expenditure. It's just $1,300 every month.
That's the salary Foster started paying Harger as of 6 months ago. Before that, it was only $300 a month.
Harger was just in the post office. He's got the combination of 2 postal boxes. One of them must be pretty private, huh?
It's federal government. We can't touch it.
How about Mrs. Foster's charge accounts? You get a list of the things that she bought before her disappearance.
Why?
Well, she'd have taken some new clothes with her, if she went away.
I'll have to come out in the open then. Go at Foster with a search warrant. One of the smartest attorneys in the country. Ever see a man bet 25 years of his life, Anders? Charlie, I want the charge account departments of the 6 best stores in New York.
Lucinda Foster had charge accounts at 4 major stores. They hadn't been used in 6 months. Jeffro got detailed descriptions of the most recent expensive clothing purchases. By late afternoon, he'd served Foster with a search warrant.
Satisfied, Captain Jethro?
No. 20 items gone. Almost a complete wardrobe. Where is she, Foster?
Why don't you take me down to the station and ask me? That's the legal procedure for the interrogation of a criminal suspect. But let me warn you, Captain Jethro. You'd better be able to prove that a crime has been committed, or you'll never wear a badge again.
What does Harger do for you that makes him worth $1,300 a month?
Who told you?
I subpoenaed your bank records.
It's a lot of money to pay a man to keep an extra post office box, isn't it?
Well, you can't touch that. That's a violation of federal law. I think I hate you more than I've hated anybody in my life.
More than Ralph Jameson?
I didn't kill him.
You know, I remember in Nuremberg, your summation convicted Schleicher of war crimes against innocent people. You had a great deal to say about peace and dignity of man, about people being able to live without fear. I thought you meant it. You had me fooled, you really did. You almost did it again yesterday. You're not going to fool anybody anymore.
Lisa!
Where's my mother? Where is she?
That's what we've been asking him, Miss Foster. I'm Matt Anders.
So you did call her?
Yes, I did.
Lisa, you've got to believe in me.
Tell me where my mother is.
I can't. She doesn't want anybody to know.
I don't believe you.
Lisa, listen to me. I love your mother. I've loved you since you were a child. Now, would I hurt either one of you?
Yes. Ever since I can remember, you stood between us. When my father died, and I needed her, you took her away from me. You kept her away from everybody. And that's why you sent me away to schools as far away as you could find.
All right, bring it in. All right, put it down. You can go. This is the missing clothing. We found it hidden behind a tool chest in the garage. Sorry, Miss Foster. We found this too, Foster. Dragging the pond.
Looks like it's been in the water a long time.
I'd say about 15 years. It's the same caliber that killed Ralph Jameson. You want to tell us where to look next, Foster?
In Long Island Sound, weighted down with an anchor from my launch. I can't tell you exactly where.
Did you kill Jameson, too?
Yes.
Take this out to Crippen and tell him to send Cliff Harger in here.
Harger had nothing to do with this.
Is that why you raised his pay $1,000 a month?
That's blackmail money. Makes him an accessory after the fact. Your boss just confessed to murdering his wife and Ralph Jameson.
He's lying.
Cliff, you stay out of
No,
this.
I'm sorry, Mr. Foster. He's doing this to save her.
Lisa, don't listen to anything he says. He's an ex-convict. He's been charged with murder himself. Don't you believe him?
I tell you, he didn't kill your mother. Mrs. Foster died early this week in a private sanitarium in New Jersey.
You got anything to back this up?
Yes. This came yesterday to the post office box you were so interested in.
This says Louise Harger died, not Mrs. Foster.
That's right. I had her committed as my sister so nobody would know who she was. She didn't know herself anymore. I sent money to the hospital to pay the expenses for the burial. And the $1,000 a month Mr. Foster paid me was the cost of caring for her in that hospital.
That's no reason for a man to hide clothing and admit to murder.
That depends on the man. Your wife killed her first husband, didn't she?
You're lying.
No. No, he isn't, Lisa.
I'm sorry for what I said about Nuremberg.
If you hadn't been sent here, we might have brought her home without anybody knowing where she died. I had dinner with Lucinda and Ralph. It was the night Ralph was killed. Lucinda had a headache, a very severe one, so I left early. And the next day, Ralph was dead. Lucinda was ill for weeks. I thought it was just a shock. But when she came out of it, we saw a great deal of each other. She was alone with a small child. Both of them were very dear to me. So we got married. About 3 months later, the headache started again. I asked her to see the doctor, but she wouldn't. That night, she tried to kill me. She had a knife. I got it away from her. She screamed at me. She said that she had killed Ralph.
You didn't call a doctor? Or the police?
To have her taken away? To have her child, Lisa, grow up with the terrible knowledge that she had given me? To have her live in fear that she might inherit the same illness? Is that why a man takes a child into his life? What love and protection could I have given her against that? And she was all I had. Maybe I was wrong to do what I did. I don't know. I love Lisa more than anything on earth. I had to keep her away from her mother and send her away to school, camps, any place but where I wanted her to be. Just so that I could shut Lucinda away from the world when I wanted to. So, as the years went on, her spells became more frequent. Finally, I had to dismiss all the servants, and I took Harger on because I felt I could trust him. I needed somebody to help me.
I drove them home from a dinner party one evening. And when Mrs. Foster got into the car, she started screaming about a severe headache. And when we got home, she tried to kill herself. It was that night that we took her to the sanitarium.
Long distance? Give me the Fremont Sanitarium in Plattfield, New Jersey.
It didn't take very long. The description the hospital gave to Jethro fit Mrs. Foster perfectly.
Thank you. You should have called them after she died, Mr. Foster. Postmortem was performed in accordance with state law. It revealed a brain tumor, probably caused by a childhood injury. That was responsible for what she did. But it isn't hereditary. Well, I guess every cop has at least one case that he never solved. Oh, he can go now. Thanks.
Mr. Gordon? Matt Anders. Yeah. On that Lucinda Foster assignment, there was no disappearance. No. Well, she was in a hospital in Jersey. Oh, serious illness. She died yesterday morning. Yeah, it is. Too bad. Yeah, she was. Very lovely.